So when we are analyzing art, one of our first things to do is to deal with the physical properties, to isolate the variable of the physical stuff it's made out of. So literally the materials the artist used. And that the term medium in art history, in the discussion of art, is a term for the material from which a work of art is made. So if we go back to Daumier, it's important to know that he made this as a print. What is printmaking as a material and a technique? Well, if you ask Google to give you some information about printmaking, you'll discover that printmaking, there are many different kinds of printmaking, but what they have in common is that they are techniques for making an image that can be reproduced, the way a poster can be printed in hundreds, thousands, or more copies, mechanical copies. So there's lots of different techniques where you might use a block of wood, carve into it, and then you can add color, and then you can press your paper into it so the paper picks up on the ink and the blank spots, which is exactly what Daumier did. So it's important to know that Daumier is actually using a low-cost medium and technique, whereas the artworks hanging on the wall are paintings in frames, higher cost. And these people are interested in the lower cost material. Let's turn to an artwork that's so expensive that it's literally priceless. One of the most famous artworks in the Western tradition. This is Michelangelo's David. So now we're turning to sculpture, but we're thinking about medium, technique, and physical properties. A very important aspect of physical property is size. The figure here looks tiny in the photograph because photographs lie. This sculpted body is actually 17 feet tall. It's enormous. It's a giant. It looms over the viewer, and even more so because it's standing on this grand pedestal that sets it even more up and apart into a realm of perfection. And so it's carved out of marble, a block or combined blocks of stone. In this case, Michelangelo was famous for using a single huge block of stone. Very difficult to actually chisel that away and create such a magnificent form. And the material of stone for Michelangelo in his original time and place suggested the grandeur of ancient Greek and Roman sculpture. Stone in general is often a material that communicates a sense of permanence, of eternal power. And yet artists can use materials in ways that actually push against their expected meanings or the connotations we have come to have with them. In this case, the great Romanian artist Constantin Brancusi is using marble, and he's making a sculpture, which is, roughly speaking, a figurative sculpture. It's called The Newborn. We're supposed to experience it as this egg-like head, the egg, the beginning, but this egg, that is the beginning, the newborn, has a kind of a form sliced out of it like the screaming mouth of a baby. And Brancusi is playing in a very sly and imaginative way with the idea of the marble figurative sculpture that has been reduced now to a mere little ovoid form that it now has no pedestal. What do? Do you put the sculpture on the floor? If you do so, it could be kicked. He is working in 1915, in the 20th century, when World War I has begun, when the entire past of art, history, of culture, of human knowledge seems to be in question as new technology, airplanes, automobiles, electricity, cinema, recorded music, all of this seems to be changing the way the world is, and World War I is feeling like perhaps this catastrophic war is killing civilization. So here is marble made to feel precarious and vulnerable, an undoing of the grandeur of Michelangelo. Let's look at one more brilliant sculptor, Ruth Asawa, a San Francisco Bay Area sculptor, whose sculptures are so inventive in terms of materials, because what she started to use is wire in a kind of a weave or a basket making system. So she started to be interested in the structural form of things in nature, but to translate that into organic forms that use a mechanical or industrial material, looped wire. And these sculptures are marvelous plays on simplified forms. She was influenced by Brancusi, and Brancusi would have loved these, although he didn't live to see them. But unlike Brancusi's work, she uses this wire fabric that she makes that allows the light to move through it. So we could say that her material is not just the looped wire, but also light and shadow itself. That's part of her sculptural experience. And whereas Michelangelo used the most solid of materials, stone, she, using this translucent, delicate material, is able to have her sculptures hang from the ceiling rather than be related to the floor. So these sculptors that I've shown you, they demonstrate how the choice of materials impacts how the artist works, what is possible with the materials, and what kinds of meanings or feelings and experiences can be created through that material. You can't do this with marble. You can't hang marble from the ceiling and have it let light penetrate it. That's a different material, allowing an entirely different vocabulary of form and meaning.